This happened a long time ago, right around Christmas. I was 30. I moved back to my parents' old house to save some money while I worked as a freelance graphic designer. The place smelled like pine from the tree my mom always put up. It felt both cozy and strange. One snowy evening, I was going through old boxes in the attic. I expected to find dusty toys or some old holiday cards. What I didn't expect was 3 beautifully wrapped gifts with my name on them. They looked perfect, but they were dated years ago. I didn't remember them at all. Something didn't sit right with me. I held the gifts. They felt heavy in an odd way, almost like they were alive. That night was when things started to get strange. I heard soft caroling outside my window. I thought it was kids messing around, so I looked out. But there was no one there. My heart raced as the air turned cold, like something brushed by. The carols lingered in the air, sweet yet haunting. I tried to ignore it, but the chill seeped into my bones. In the days that followed, more odd things kept happening. The lights flickered in the house. Drafts rushed through rooms even with the windows shut tight. Every time it happened, I thought of those gifts. It felt like something in me wouldn't let me open them. My stomach twisted. Why did I feel this way? One night the caroling returned. I rushed to the window, heart pounding again. I opened it, expecting to see kids hiding in the snow. But the street was empty, just wind rustling the trees. I felt frozen, and in that stillness, a voice whispered next to me. I couldn't make out the words, but my skin prickled. I felt watched. Each encounter left me more unsettled, and things began to flash in my mind. Faces, places, memories I couldn't really grasp. I tried to shake the feeling, focusing on anything else, but I couldn't. Those gifts kept me trapped in a web of confusion. Finally, I approached the gifts again. They sat under the tree, just waiting. My heart raced as I reached out. But then, I heard a whisper close to my ear. "Open them," it said. My breath caught. I turned around, but the room was empty. A darkness crept around me, and dread filled my chest. I froze, feeling something behind me. There was a sound, soft but clear. I turned slowly, knowing deep down I shouldn't have. I was not alone. The air felt thick, and shadows danced at the edges of my vision. I glanced back at the gifts. Those gifts that held answers, or maybe something worse. The memories I couldn't recall washed over me like a wave, but then they drifted away again. I stood there, heart pounding, knowing this Christmas would never let me go. The next day I decided I had to do something. I couldn't keep living in that house with those strange feelings and whispers. I was still shaken from the night before. Those gifts felt like a weight on my chest. I thought maybe talking to someone could help. I sat down with a cup of coffee and tried to call my sister. She was usually the one who made sense out of chaos. As the phone rang, I glanced at the tree. The gifts seemed to gleam at me. My heart raced, but I forced myself to look away. "Hey, it's me," my sister said, her voice cheerful. "You're not going to believe who's in town." I hesitated, thinking about how to approach it. "I found these gifts in the attic. They have my name on them, but they're really old. I think something weird is happening here." There was a pause. "Gifts from the attic? That's kind of eerie." "I know, right? And there are whispers at night and things like that. I don't know what to make of it." "You should open them. Find out what's inside. Maybe it's something from Mom or Dad. They might have left you something special," she suggested casually. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. But what if it's not that? What if it brings back memories I don't want to remember? "Just be careful, okay? I'll come over this weekend and we'll figure it out together," she reassured me, but I noticed a hint of curiosity in her voice. I agreed because deep down, I hoped she could bring some clarity. After hanging up, I pushed the thoughts aside and went for a walk. I needed some fresh air. The snow crunched beneath my feet, and for a moment, the chill outside felt better than the darkness inside. I passed homes all decorated for Christmas, lights shining bright. But somehow everything felt off. The joy seemed distant. That evening, just as it started to get dark, the caroling returned. I stopped in my tracks. This time the voices were closer, clearer. I could almost make out words. I rushed back home, heart pounding. I got inside, just as the whispers crescendoed. They filled the house, wrapping around me like a blanket. I felt trapped. I ran to the living room and gripped the edge of the table. Then I heard something shift behind me. I turned and saw one of the gifts had moved slightly. My breath caught in my throat. I hadn't touched it, but there it sat, less than an inch closer to me. It was as if it wanted my attention, pulling me in, teasing me to confront it. I knew I had a choice to make. I could open it right then, but fear coursed through me. What would happen next? That's when I saw it. A dark shape flickered in the corner of my eye. I turned quickly, but it was gone. The sound of distant caroling echoed in my ears, echoing the growing sense of dread inside me. Suddenly, I knew I had to face whatever lingered both inside that house and within myself. I felt compelled to open the gift, to confront whatever mysteries lay within. But as I reached toward it, the room fell silent. The darkness clung to my thoughts. And then everything went dark. When the lights flickered back on, I found myself still in the living room. The gift was right there, gleaming under the soft glow. The whispers, however, had disappeared. I took a deep breath, my heart still racing from the sudden plunge into darkness. For a moment I wondered if it had all been in my head, a trick of the mind fueled by fear. But I couldn't shake the sense that something was watching me. The air felt thick, charged. I moved closer, my hand trembling, as I reached for the gift that had shifted. The wrapping paper was delicate but worn, with yellowing edges. It was almost like it had been waiting for me, waiting for this moment. In that instant, I heard a faint sound, a child's laughter echoing from somewhere deep within the house. I froze. My instinct was to turn and run, but curiosity anchored me to the spot. I glanced at the gift, then back toward the hallway. The laughter faded into silence, replaced by a soft whispering. "Open it." The voice was clear now, almost coaxing. I hesitated. The idea of opening the gift suddenly felt monumental, as if I was about to unearth something I wasn't ready for. I couldn't let fear win. I ripped the paper away, and the sound of crinkling filled the still air. Inside was a small wooden box, intricately carved with patterns I didn't recognize. It looked old, like it had seen many hands before mine. My fingers brushed its surface, and the moment I did, a shiver ran down my spine. I wanted to pull away, but the box felt like it was pulling me in deeper, whispering secrets I couldn't hear yet. Then all at once the atmosphere shifted. The air grew colder, and I could see my breath billow out in front of me. I glanced around, my skin prickling with unease. I could almost swear I felt someone standing behind me. I turned suddenly, but the room was empty. Heart pounding, I focused back on the wooden box. I had to know what was inside. As I unlatched it, there was a click that echoed through the stillness. The lid creaked open, revealing a delicate music box. It was painted in muted colors, a little ballerina frozen in mid-pirouette. I took a breath, caught in the moment. Then, I turned the key at the bottom. The music that played was sweet, yet haunting. Just as the melody filled the room, doors in the hallway slammed shut one after another, each bang louder than the last. Panic surged through me. I stumbled back, dropping the music box. It hit the floor with a soft thud, the ballerina continuing to dance to the eerie tune. The whispers returned, louder this time, overlapping like a chaotic conversation. I pressed my hands to my ears, desperate to block out the sound, but it was too late. The voices were mixed with the laughter, and the air felt charged again. And then I saw her. A small figure stood at the end of the hallway. She had long dark hair and wore an old-fashioned dress. My heart dropped as I realized I recognized that dress. It was just like the one my sister used to wear when we were kids. As I blinked in disbelief, the figure began to move toward me. Clouds of fear washed over me, and all I could think was that I had to escape. But the door behind me wouldn't open, locking me in with whatever secrets lingered in the shadows. I took a step back, and as I did, I stumbled over the music box. I hit the ground hard, and the last thing I saw was the little girl's face, inches away from mine. At that moment, I knew things were about to get much darker. I blinked rapidly. trying to make sense of what I was seeing. The little girl's face was familiar yet distant, like a memory that had been tucked away for years. Her eyes held both mischief and sorrow, locking onto mine with an intensity that sent chills down my spine. "Why did you come back?" she asked, her voice soft, almost melodic, but with an underlying edge. I felt my heart race. I wanted to answer, but words wouldn't form. Panic settled in my chest like a heavy stone. The air seemed to thicken around me, suffocating any sense of safety I might have felt. I scrambled to my feet, glancing back at the music box still playing its haunting melody. The ballerina twirled elegantly, oblivious to the chaos that surrounded her. My mind raced with thoughts of my sister, the games we once played, the laughter we shared. Had my childhood been a lie? Then, the girl took a step closer, her feet gliding silently over the floor. "You shouldn't have opened it," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Now you're one of us." A wave of dread washed over me. I turned toward the door, my body instinctively responding with the urge to flee. It wouldn't budge. I pushed against it, desperation clawing at my throat, but the door remained steadfast. "I just want to help you," she continued, tilting her head. "You're lost like we were." Her eyes flickered, dark pools of sorrow that seemed to draw me in. Forcing myself to stay put, I took a shaky step toward her, trying to grasp what she meant. "Who are you?" I managed to whisper, the words spilling out like air escaping from a punctured balloon. But before she could respond, the whispers intensified, almost merging into one chorus, urging me to abandon my fear. "Find the truth," they echoed. "Remember what was lost." The music box continued its waltz, and I felt a tug at my memories, pulling me sideways through time. Images of Christmas mornings, brightly wrapped gifts, and laughter flickered in my mind like a broken film reel. Then just as quickly, I remembered the day it all changed, the accident, the shouting, the darkness that flooded my life after my sister was gone. "Stop!" I shouted, clamping my hands over my ears. I didn't want to remember. Not now, not this way. But the girl stepped even closer, her face only inches from mine. The room seemed to swirl around us, the dim light flickering. "You must face it," she said, her voice sharp like glass, "or you'll be trapped forever." Then, as if summoned by her words, everything went dark again. The music ceased abruptly, leaving an eerie silence in its wake. My heart raced, the quiet pressing on me like a weight. I blinked, straining to see, but the darkness enveloped me completely. "Help!" I screamed out, my voice swallowed whole. Suddenly I felt a rough pull on my arm, dragging me backward into the void. The air shifted around me, and I gasped, trying to fight. The little girl's laughter echoed, distant and mocking as the shadows deepened. That's when I felt something cold touch my back. A hand, small and unyielding. I was running out of time. I had to find a way through this darkness before it consumed me. With a burst of adrenaline, I pushed against the weight, trying to find a way to escape. How was I going to get out? The grip on my arm tightened, and I knew I had to confront whatever awaited me in the depths of my memories. I felt a jolt, and suddenly I was standing in a hallway, the darkness giving way to dull light. I blinked and steadied myself against the wall. The little girl was gone, her laughter now just a ghostly echo. My arm tingled from where her grip had been, and an unsettling chill crept up my spine. The hallway was narrow and lined with faded wallpaper, the kind that looked like it belonged to another era. Old photographs hung askew on the walls, their subjects staring blankly at me. I recognized one photo, my sister, smiling brightly, holding a wrapped gift. I walked slowly toward it, the floorboards creaking beneath my feet. I reached out to touch the glass, but an overwhelming sense of dread washed over me. What was I doing here? Why did the memories surge back so forcefully? Before I could retreat, I heard a muffled sound coming from a door at the end of the hallway. It was faint but unmistakable. Laughter. A child's laughter. My heart raced. I didn't want to know what lay behind that door, but I felt an irrevocable pull to find out. I hesitated, too scared to move but too intrigued to stay still. Drawing a deep breath, I approached the door. It looked like the kind of door you'd see in an old house, heavy and sturdy, a relic of times past. I reached for the handle and turned it slowly. The door creaked open, revealing a small, dimly lit room. A table was set in the center, covered in holiday decorations, string lights, ornaments, and freshly baked cookies. The scent wafting through the air was mouth-watering and oddly nostalgic. But there was something off. The room felt frozen in time, like a snapshot from my childhood that had gone awry. I stepped further in, eyes scanning for signs of life. But I was alone. Then I noticed it. A music box on the table, identical to the one from earlier. My heart sank. I reached for it, recalling how the sweet melody had woven through my memories. But this one was closed, the lid down tight. I felt a strange urge to open it, the whispers from before still echoing in my mind. "Find the truth," they urged again. And before I knew it, my fingers were lifting the lid. The soft strains of music began to play, but this time, the ballerina was missing. Instead, the space inside was filled with shadows that seemed to pulse and swirl. Suddenly, the laughter I had heard before grew louder. The sound was no longer muffled, it was all around me. I spun around, but the room was empty. My skin prickled, and I instinctively stepped back, nearly colliding with the table. "Who's there?" I called out, though deep down I feared the answer. And then everything went cold. The air around me shifted, dark clouds rolling in from nowhere. The laughter twisted into something darker, a bubbling malice that set my heart racing. I wanted to run, but my feet felt glued to the floor. As the darkness began to close in, I locked eyes with the shadows swirling in the music box. Then, like a light flashing in the dark, I recognized one of the swirling shapes. It looked eerily familiar. That's when I saw it, the outline of a small girl, her face obscured, but the essence unmistakable. My breath caught in my throat. "No, not you." The shadows surged forward, and I realized I was no longer in control. The room spun, and suddenly the walls felt closer, almost suffocating. The laughter transformed into cries, and the shadows surged up around me, pulling at my body, my mind screaming for escape as everything went dark once again. I gasped and jolted upright, flailing as I struggled to breathe. The darkness faded slowly, revealing the familiar ceiling of my bedroom. My heart pounded in my chest like a frantic drummer, and it took me a moment to collect my thoughts. I was back in my room, the contents of the dream still hanging heavy in my mind, but something was wrong. The air felt thick, electric with a tension I couldn't quite pinpoint. I glanced around, half expecting the little girl or the shadows to reappear. But there was only silence, the kind that wraps itself around you and leaves you feeling exposed. I swung my legs out of bed, the cold floor shocking me back to reality. The dream replayed in my mind, the image of the little girl's outline refusing to leave me. Why was she haunting me? And what truth was I supposed to find? I shook my head, pushing those thoughts aside for now. I needed to clear my mind. I decided a walk would help, maybe even a trip to the old house down the street. As I dressed, I felt a tug of anxiety. Memories flooded back, my sister's laughter echoing in that hallway, the music box, the love we shared at Christmas. The energy of those moments felt like a beacon, urging me to seek. I stepped outside, the cool air brushing against my skin. It felt oddly comforting, but the unease from my dream lingered. My feet carried me instinctively toward the house where I had spent so many childhood holidays. The closer I got, the more the familiar sight sent shivers down my spine. The house looked just as I remembered, welcoming yet foreboding. I hesitated at the front gate, a wave of memories crashing into me. My sister and I playing in the yard, her smile brightening even the dullest winter day. But I had to go inside. I opened the gate and walked to the front door. When I knocked, I expected someone to answer. Instead, I was met with silence. I tried the handle, and to my surprise, it turned easily. The door creaked open, revealing the dimly lit hallway. I stepped inside, and the musty scent of aged wood and dust engulfed me. Instinctively, I felt I should turn back, but something drew me in. As I wandered through the familiar rooms, I felt a pull toward the living room. When I arrived, my breath caught in my throat. The Christmas tree was up, just like we used to decorate. But the ornaments looked different, darker somehow, and they seemed to glimmer ominously in the low light. I reached for one, a small wooden angel with a chipped wing. My sister's laughter rang in my ears again, but it quickly faded into soft sobbing. I spun around, convinced someone was behind me. "Who's there?" I called, my heart racing anew. The air felt thick again, constricting around me like a vice. A whisper answered from the shadows near the tree. "You shouldn't have come back." I stepped back, dread pooling in my stomach. There it was again, the sensation of being watched. I turned to flee, but a figure emerged from the darkness, silhouetted against the flickering lights of the tree. I froze. It looked like her, my sister. But something was off. "What do you want?" I croaked, my voice barely steady. Her face turned slightly, just enough to cast a glimpse of familiarity. But the smile was gone. "You can't escape the truth." Before I could ask for clarity, everything around me started to swirl, a cascade of memories, shadows, and echoes, whirling together until all went black again. I blinked, the sudden brightness disorienting me. I found myself in a small, cramped room. The air felt stale, scented with an acrid mixture of dust and mold. I was no longer in the living room. Instead, I stood in what appeared to be my old bedroom, the one I had shared with my sister. Confusion washed over me. How had I gotten here? The walls were plastered with faded pastel wallpaper, and my sister's dolls were neatly arranged on the shelf, their glassy eyes staring back at me. A strange sensation tingled down my spine. Despite the familiarity, I felt a sense of wrongness, an undercurrent of something dark. I stepped further inside, drawn to her side of the room. The bed was neatly made, the quilt still vibrant despite its age. My fingertips brushed against the quilt, and in that moment, I heard soft laughter echo from the hallway outside, followed by a quiet, deliberate whisper that floated through the air. "Help me." My heart raced again, a sharp adrenaline sharpening my senses. I turned toward the door, hesitation battling with urgency. I wanted to run, to escape this unnerving place, yet the whisper felt compelling. I took a cautious step forward, then another, until I reached the doorway. Peering out, I noticed the hallway stretched on, seemingly longer than I remembered. Pictures lined the walls, but they were different now. Distorted faces, unsettling smiles that didn't belong. I swallowed hard, the unsettling pulse of fear threatening to drown me. "Help me." The voice came again, more insistent this time, a raw plea wrapped in desperation. With each step, I felt the walls close in, suffocating me with dread. I steadied my breathing, trying to calm the storm within. I should have turned back. Instead, I pressed on. The laughter grew louder, mingling with the whispers, both buoyant and chilling. At the end of the hallway, I found a door slightly ajar. The laughter turned to an eerie silence, as if the world was holding its breath. My hand hesitated over the doorknob. What lay beyond that threshold? I pushed the door open slowly, and my breath caught once more. It was the attic, dim and dusty, filled with old boxes and discarded toys. The air grew heavier with each step I took. And then I saw her. The little girl from my dreams stared back at me. Her hair seemed to glow in the gloom, and her eyes, wide and filled with unspoken emotion, locked onto mine. "You shouldn't have come here," she said softly, her voice echoing like a haunting melody. "Why?" I managed to ask, my heart drumming wildly. Her gaze shifted past me, to a dark corner of the attic. "You need to find the truth." I turned instinctively, my eyes searching the corner where she pointed. There, half collapsed, was an old wooden chest. Something stirred inside me, a sense of purpose overriding my fear. I took a shaky breath and walked towards it. What was inside? I reached for the latch, my fingers trembling as I opened the chest. The moment the lid creaked open, the room seemed to plunge into an even darker shadow, secrets spilling forth like a tide. That's when I saw it. Scraps of letters, photographs, and something else. The weight of the revelation threatened to bury me. Before I could grasp it fully, A chilling wind swept through the attic, slamming the door shut behind me. I spun around, panic rising. Whatever truth I was meant to uncover had just become a race against time. Someone, something, was in here with me, determined to keep me from discovering the darkness waiting inside the chest. My heart thundered as I turned back to the chest, my focus shifting between the letters, the photographs, and the encroaching darkness. The chill in the room wrapped around me, thick and suffocating. I could almost sense something lurking just beyond the shadows, waiting. "Find the truth," the girl had said. But what truth? I needed to know. Yet every instinct screamed at me to run. The letters on top fluttered slightly, as if a breath of wind passed through them, beckoning me closer. Ignoring the primal fear that coursed through me, I bent down, trying to make sense of the scattered bits of my past. The first letter caught my eye. It was yellowed with age, the ink fading. I unfolded it carefully, the crinkling paper sounding far too loud in the heavy silence of the attic. "Dear Sarah," it began. The name sent a jolt through me. My sister. I struggled to recall the letter's date, but recognition was elusive. It detailed a mundane day, school, a fall from the swing, and a new doll. Just an ordinary letter, except for the way it ended. "I'm so scared. Please don't tell Mom and Dad." A cold shiver ran through me. Why was she scared? Stranger still, why had I never seen this letter? I continued reading, my eyes widening with each line. The further I went, the more frantic the writing became, hints of darkness creeping in, shadows of secrets I felt were better left buried. I dropped the letter, my hands trembling. I needed to continue, to uncover more pieces. As I sifted through the photographs, one in particular caught my breath. It showed my sister, but she was not alone. A shadowy figure loomed behind her, barely visible, yet undeniably there. A chill wrapped around my spine like icy fingers. I crushed the photo in my fist, fear spiraling down into dread. "Why are you here?" came a voice from the dark corner of the attic, sharp and piercing like a knife. I spun around but saw nothing. The little girl had vanished. My breath quickened. I shouldn't have come here. My instincts screamed for me to run, but the compulsion to uncover the truth held me captive. I stepped back toward the chest when a scraping noise echoed through the attic, low and haunting. It was followed by soft steps approaching me. My pulse raced, and I could feel a feverish heat spreading across my skin. Whoever, or whatever, was in this haunted space with me was no longer hidden. "Help me," I whispered, mimicking the voice that had lured me here. The air grew colder still, and dread pooled in my stomach. Then with a sudden surge of noise, the boxes around the room began to tremble and rattle, as though a storm swept through them. I staggered backward, yelling out in panic. The door that had just closed now rattled against its frame, as if desperate to open. The shadows grew thicker, almost alive, closing around me. I lunged forward to grab the chest's contents, but as I did, everything went dark. I felt myself being pulled back, deeper into the attic's shadowed corners, the unseen force consuming me. My last thought before everything faded. I had come here for answers, but I may have opened a door I couldn't close. I woke with a start, a jolt spilling me onto the wooden floor. My heart pounded in my ears, drowning out the silence of the attic. I blinked against the dim light that crept in through the solitary window. The air felt different, heavy, pressing down on me like a weight I couldn't shake off. Panic set in as the memories hit me. The letters, the photograph, the voice. I scrambled to my feet, my mind racing, searching for a way out. But the door I had seen before was now just a shadowed outline. It felt like a prison, closing in and showing me only what it wanted me to see. I stepped away from the chest, and that's when I noticed a faint glow coming from the corner. It flickered like a candle's flame, a pulsating light that drew me in despite my instincts. As I ventured closer, I fought the urge to flee. Was this the truth the girl had spoken of? In the glow, a small object lay on the floor. A locket, tarnished with age, half buried beneath dust. I picked it up, my fingers trembling. The cool metal felt alive, as if it held memories of its own. I opened it, revealing two tiny portraits inside. one of a woman who resembled my sister and another of the shadowy figure from the photograph. My breath hitched. I had to know. Who were they? What had my sister gotten involved in? Before I could dwell too long on that question, an icy gust surged through the attic, extinguishing the light and leaving me shrouded in darkness. "Help me." The voice returned, echoing through the shadows, this time closer, more insistent. My skin prickled, and I turned slowly, scanning the corners for the source of the sound. "Who are you?" My voice cracked, bouncing off the walls in the silence that followed. Suddenly the shadows stirred to life. I clenched the locket in my fist, unsure if I was ready for whatever revelation lay ahead. The darkness swirled, and from it emerged a figure, indistinct but glaringly real, the outline shifting. It moved closer, and I staggered back. "Why did you leave me?" it whispered, and for a fleeting moment, I thought I recognized the voice. "Sarah?" My heart tightened. I took a shaky step forward. "Is that you?" But the figure only shook its head. "You weren't supposed to find out." Confusion gripped me. What had I stumbled into? The answer to my sister's fear, perhaps? The room spun, shadows coiling tightly around me. I was locked in a twisted moment of realization, straddling between my past and whatever dark truth lingered in the attic. With a quick glance back at the chest, I felt a surge of determination. If Sarah lingered here, trapped by secrets, I would unearth them. I had to understand. Then, as if summoned by my intent, an echo of laughter erupted suddenly, clear and youthful. It was my sister's laugh, beautiful yet haunting. That's when I saw it. At the top of the chest, a new letter had appeared, one I hadn't noticed before. The chilling smile of a hidden truth beckoned me closer. I reached for the letter, and as my fingers brushed against the yellowed paper, a cold wind swept through the attic, rattling the windows. I hesitated, feeling the weight of unseen eyes on me, but I knew I had come this far. The girl who had appeared in my dreams, the whispers, the laughter, they had led me here for a reason. I unfolded the letter, my heart beating rapidly. The handwriting was small and precise. "Dear Sarah," it began, each word pulling me deeper into the past. As I read on, the writing began to shift, the tone turning darker. "I'm sorry I let you down. I should have protected you from him." My breath caught in my throat. Who was him? My mind raced with memories of shadows, of what had felt like an unresolved threat that loomed over my childhood. The letter continued, detailing fear of a man who lurked in the background of our family's happiness, someone I had never been aware of. "You must tell someone," it urged. "You're not safe. Promise me." The final line sent chills down my spine. "If anything happens to me, don't trust them. Remember the attic." I couldn't believe what I was reading. Did I really not know? An entire history hidden from me, buried beneath layers of pain and silence. Everything I thought I understood about my family, about the Christmases that should have been filled with joy, plunged into questions and unease. Then came the laughter again, bright but edged with something more sinister. I spun around as the shadows flickered, and before me stood the little girl once more, eyes wide, almost pleading. "You have to find the truth," she said softly, her tone barely above a whisper. "Truth about what?" I replied, my voice steadying with purpose. I was done with fear. I needed answers, and the shadows around us thickened, as if they could sense my shifting resolve. "You have to awaken them," she said with urgency, glancing toward the chest. Was she speaking of the spirits trapped here? The girl's voice seemed to dissolve into the whispers that turned urgent with each passing second. I felt a pull toward the chest yet again. It beckoned me, a siren call promising revelation. "That letter, it has to mean something. Is it about you? Is it connected to Sarah?" I urged, but she didn't respond. Instead, she began to fade, her form blurring like smoke. "Wait!" I shouted, reaching for her, but she vanished completely, leaving me standing in the swirling shadows, clutching the letter tightly to my chest. I turned back to the chest, and driven by a mix of determination and terror, lifted the lid once more. The music, The same haunting melody that heralded my sister's presence floated through the air. The shadows danced in rhythm, shifting around me, intoxicating and mesmerizing. I knelt beside the chest, eyes wide with intent, and began to pull out more items. A stack of pictures, tattered and worn, each a glimpse of innocence long gone. The faces were familiar, yet distorted, as though they had been marred by time and fear. There was my sister, but with her stood the shadowy figure from earlier. My heart raced as I recognized the unease curling around it. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from behind me. The door slammed open and a gust of cold wind flooded the attic. They were coming for me. "Get out!" a furious voice cried, resonating through the shadows. I turned to see an indistinct figure advancing, and instinct kicked in. I had to leave, quickly. I glanced back at the chest, uncertainty gripping my heart. The shadows were clinging to me now, wrapping themselves around my ankles like twisted vines. Grabbing the photographs and the letter, I bolted toward the door, adrenaline surging through my veins. I burst into the hallway, sprinting toward the stairs as the darkness swirled behind me. The laughter, relentless and mocking, chased after me. I could feel the presence gaining ground, the weight of something ancient and dark threatening to pull me back into the void. "Help me! Help me!" I yelled, desperate for a response that wouldn't come. I reached the main floor, throwing myself through the front door and into the winter night. The air bit at my skin, sharp and cold, but I didn't stop to breathe. I kept running, the shadows receding behind me, retreating as the lights of my childhood neighborhood flickered into view. As I slowed, I glanced back at the house, half expecting to see the little girl standing at the window, or a shadow lurking outside. But there was nothing, just the quiet blanket of snow covering both past and present. I stumbled to a stop, my heart thudding painfully in my chest. The images from the photographs still burned in my mind, the truth still unrevealed. The weight of those memories, those words, tugged at my thoughts. I felt lost, like I had escaped a storm, but was still adrift. I had uncovered part of a secret, yes, but it was only the beginning. What had I awakened? Who was still trapped in that attic among the shadows? I still had so many questions, and as I stood in that snow-covered street under a blanket of stars, I couldn't shake the feeling that the storm was far from over. I turned away from the house, the chill creeping into my bones, telling myself I could run, but could I ever truly escape? The answers remained tangled in a web of shadows, waiting for the next time I dared to uncover the truth. I moved forward, knowing this wouldn't be the last I heard of them or of her.